Welcome to Straight Talk with Carly Alyssa Thorne, and I have with me today Rob Whalley. And what I love about him is that he really understands the mind, body, spirit. He's a prolific writer. We connected on Facebook, and I've always loved his images and his writings that he's put together. So today we're going to be talking about his book, In Life School, and all the wonderful inspirational posts he's put in here, which is a combination of his writing and also what he puts up on Facebook and all over social media. So welcome, Rob.
Welcome. Thank you for having me on the show.
You're welcome. So the first thing I'd love to ask you, because I always get people asking me these questions, is what was your inspiration behind writing the book?
I have been a songwriter most of my life. I have 3 music CDs. And I was on about a 7-year writing drought, to where I just kind of assumed that the universe, was no longer writing songs through me, and I was okay with that. And I helped my best friend go through the 5-year process of dying from terminal cancer. And when I was with her in the last month, that pain was so deep that it awoke my deep spiritual writing, and I started writing songs again. And I finished a few songs. I had some older ones that I finished, and I thought, well, it's a good time to go back in the recording studio. It had been about 10 years. And a close friend of mine said, well, Rob, you're writing all the time. Why don't you write a book? And I said, write a book? I don't know how to write a book. He goes, well, you just write it. And so I said, well, that's easy for you to say. Everybody says they have a book in them, but how many people have one? And so I went to Mark Victor Hansen and Jack Canfield's seminar, Mega Book Marketing University. That was the first step towards it. I read books about writing books, and that was 5 years ago. So it wasn't an overnight process.
I don't think anything is an overnight process. All of life is a journey. So the other thing I always love to ask is, what was the inspiration behind the title of the book? There's always a great story behind the titles of books.
Well, when I grew up with 6 kids, and my father died when I was 10. So I always had this sense of that I was teaching myself, raising myself, my single mom with 6 kids, and that I always paid attention that since I didn't have a father, I had to learn from people, places, and things. And I was a relatively good student. I got A's and B's in high school. And after my first year of local college, I said to myself, I'm paying for this. I'm getting the same grades I got in high school. I don't want to be a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, specific that I need a college degree. I had hair down to here, 18. I was, one of the original hippies, that during that 60s, 70s, graduated in 72. So this was 1973. So on semester break, I came home to my mother and I said, Mom, I've decided to quit college. I just don't see any purpose in it. And I want to go to the University of Life and learn from the School of Hard Knocks, learn by going out into the world. And she said, so what are you talking about? What kind of school is that? And I said, well, that's life school. And so this was 1973. And that always stuck in my mind. And a few songs that I wrote, I used the word life school. The first page is from the first song I ever wrote, and it says, I'm a lover and a dreamer, a wise man and a fool. I'm everything I've ever learned while going through life school. So when it came around to titling it, I had the title before I even started to write. And then the subtitles, Living is Your Classroom, Experience is Your Teacher, Loving is Your Test, kept it within that concept that life is a school.
And what I love about your title is it's just really true. I think we learn more from life experiences and what we go through, the lessons, the ahas, than we do from book learning, which is mostly memorization. Memorize this, take the test, you get an A because you memorized correctly. Versus trial and error is the way we learn, live, and grow. So I would love for you to go through some of your life lessons from your book. You can pick, however many you want. And I just think it'd be really great for people to get a sense of some of your bigger ahas or nuggets from the book so that entice them to go out and grab it and read it.
Sure. Well, what I did with the book is in lieu of using chapters, I just simply changed them to courses. Again, keeping in line with the concept that we're always learning something from everyone and everything all the time. Whether we choose to or not, we're still learning something. It may be that we're not learning and that we have to repeat the opportunity to learn the lesson again and again and again. And that's, life will continue to give you the opportunity until you learn it, move on to a higher place, and then you're just given another test to take. And these can be specific, something that is a major issue in your life, or they can be very small things. The idea that it's the small things that you pay attention to, because those are the things that add up to the big things. There are not typically a lot of big things in people's lives. And if you pay attention to the little things and you're grateful for the little things, then you can build a lot of gratitude in your life. And so the book, like any other creative process, people would say to me, where do your songs come from? I'd say, well, I don't know. They come from life. I'll be walking on a beach, or I'll be painting my house, or I'll be at work or driving in my car or something. And in this day and age, a lot of creative people will use the term that is channeled through you. And actually Beethoven, I have a quote in here about Beethoven, and he starts his quote up saying, so you ask me, where do I get my inspiration? I get it walking in the woods. I get it on a winter's day. I get it from the universe, and I interpret it into songs. So it being life school, I picked courses or subjects: thinking, having a positive attitude, feeling your emotions, finding happiness, giving forgiveness, living in gratitude, going through stormy days, which everybody can relate to. Then the second chapter or course is turning problems into possibilities. And everything is happening for a reason. Taking action, making a shift, being your change, and loving is your test. So within there, the book is, yes, it has my stories in it. But I found that to be very, very limited. And I found many, many inspirational stories by unknown authors after years and years of searching that were on the internet. They were available to use. They were unknown authors. And I felt even if I tried, I couldn't write a better story because they got that inspiration. I didn't. And so I have my life stories. There's about 10 of them in there. But I also have 40 other life-changing stories. They're legend-oriented, or they're philosophically oriented, like a Chinese legend. And those, what's great about those is people can interpret them into their own stories. The same as my own. Yet, so it was more, not so much the stories themselves, but what is the universe? What is God trying to teach us? And I believe the first thing is love. And right behind that, they did a Gallup poll, and they asked people, what do you want out of life? And you would think that people would say, I want more money, more power, more things, more sex. I want more to travel more. Well, the number one answer was more happiness. And Aristotle said happiness is the purpose for living. the whole aim of human existence. So back in 30 AD or whatever time, a long time ago, 2,000 plus years ago, they were going through the same things. Wanted to be happy. They wanted love. And then the sisters of all of that are gratitude and forgiveness. And so I focus more in on elements that I felt that I was drawn to write into the book. And I've been in sales and marketing my whole life. So one of the Tom Hopkins and Dale Carnegie elements of selling, of which they say you never sell anybody anything. You just give them enough information and create an environment for them to make a decision to sell it to themselves. And so as a salesperson, people think you have all the answers or you're supposed to be the expert. And so what I was taught was to find the experts in your field and quote them. And people will just naturally and directly think it's you. They'll think you're the expert because you're quoting this great, well-known expert. And so I spent the last 2 years of writing, weaving in as a conversation over 350 inspirational quotes. And the idea was not just to put a quote in. It was to create a conversation that when I came out of my writing and went to a quote, it was as if we were face to face. Then when I came out of the quote, I went back into my writing. So as a songwriter, it's verse, verse, chorus, verse, verse, chorus. And that's pretty much the way I wrote the book. Paragraph, paragraph, quote, paragraph, paragraph, story, paragraph, paragraph. I don't go too many paragraphs without bringing in a quote, etc. And so I have Einstein, Jesus, Buddha, Helen Keller, Mark Twain, presidents, famous people. There's too many of them to mention. I do mention them, but the concept is that this is about life, right? And then I brought in people as far as quotes: Socrates, Og Mandino, James Allen, Confucius, Einstein, Eckhart Tolle, Andrew Andrews, John Lennon, Dr. Wayne Dyer, Aristotle, Helen Keller, Julius Caesar, Emerson, Thoreau, Dr. Seuss, Deepak Chopra, Jesus, Buddha, Brian Tracy, Norman Vincent Peale, Joel Osteen, Gandhi, Napoleon Hill, Tony Robbins, the Dalai Lama, Zig Ziglar, Dale Carnegie, Abraham Lincoln, Marianne Williamson, Rick Warren, Sigmund Freud, Rumi, Oprah, Stephen Covey, and hundreds of other wise and successful people. So it would be a boring book if it was just me.
The great thing about quotes in there is that everybody also interprets them differently. And I know, like you and I have both done, our style of doing our Facebook posts is we might take a quote and then we expand on the quote, what we feel about the quote or what that quote means to us. And I think that helps people resonate on a very different level, and it gets them thinking about what that quote means to them. So I think the idea of incorporating quotes, that it actually shows what your core values are, what you believe. So it's a way of also of the audience getting to know the author better. You're obviously not going to put quotes in there that don't mean something to you or that don't resonate with you. The other thing I'd like to touch upon is that in your book as well, you're shaking your head no?
No, I was going to say that I had to go through thousands and thousands of quotes in order to come up with the 350 that I put in the book. Because, again, it had to resonate. It had to be a compliment to the writing that I was writing. And I had to know that the person who reads it is going to be touched by it, which is even more important.
Exactly. The other thing I love about your book is, too, that you have, it's kind of like you said, you created courses. You also created the sections of writing, right? Which I think is also a great process to do, too, because as people are reading and as they're going through that course, if you will, you have those spaces. So can you explain what was your idea behind doing that as well?
Well, I know that to learn something, you have to read it, you have to speak it, you have to hear it and write it. And so when you read, you're obviously seeing it, But when you read, you're talking to yourself. So you're talking it and hearing it internally. And so the writing element had to be there. And I looked at a lot of books, and this is a self-help inspirational book. Is there anything new in it? I think there are like 7 basic truths. And you pick up any self-help book, especially someone who's very well known, and they all have those elements into those books, and their next book and their next book after that. And so it's different from book to book is the author. They say there's no new music ever written. It's just a different style coming out of the artist. And so I didn't want to bog the book down by also making it a workbook. So I kept each question to 5 answers. And so that just 5 lines to write in your answer. And then, but I would have maybe, I would ask the question, what makes you unhappy? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. Well, what makes you happy? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. Well, what can you do to replace your unhappiness, unhappy things with the happy things that you have written down? So take a moment and see how you can, what the things that you can possibly do based upon what you've already read and what you already know, because everybody's answers are already inside of them. And so I kept it simple, but I also kept it, I think, very, very doable. That for someone, pick up a pen and write down 5, 10, or 15 things and keep on reading the book. And I also felt that was something that you could go back to. And after you finish the book, the book, I spent a lot of time designing the book so that you could just open it up, any page, because people either say, I read like crazy. I'm a voracious reader. And the other is that, I don't read at all. I ask them why. And there's a lot of statistics from the American Publishers Association. And this day and age, most people don't read. What that most people is about 65%, 70% of the population. Of the 30% that do read, 65% are women. Women are more interested in the spiritual things, the emotional things, the higher consciousness things. And so I designed the book so people go, well, great. It's in courses. So it's not a novel. You don't read it from front to back. You can, many people do. I'm on my third reading of it. But you can open it up and say, I'm just having a lot of negative thoughts, and my attitude is negative. So you can pick, what are you thinking? Having a positive attitude, or living in gratitude. Take your pick. Read the stories, or you can just pick up the book, which I believe happens all the time, and here's just a simple quote. And I didn't even go to the subject, but it seems to always relate to whatever you're talking about. And the quote is, of course, there will be problems in life. Earth is a place where you are presented with difficulties, frustrations, obstacles, and handicaps. The whole purpose of earthly existence is to meet conditions that are a challenge to the evolving spirit. So that, when I read it, that gives me insight into what my negative thoughts would be about. No one's happy all the time. No one has 100% positive thoughts. We're not designed that way. This earth plane is not designed that way. And so negative thoughts, negative emotions, negative experiences, they have a reason. And our job, we're spiritual beings having a physical experience called life, is to work that out and expand our consciousness, expand our spirit. And this is designed for the person that doesn't read and doesn't have the time and doesn't read self-help inspirational books.
So a lot of things in there that are really, I think, awesome. And like you said, people are inundated with just so many things going on in their lives. They really don't have the time in their minds. They don't think they have. Because what it boils down to is if we really wanted to read something, we could create the time. So it boils down to most people are so multitasking and way overextended. They really don't take the time to read. That's more of my perspective on that one. I do like the fact that you laid it out like that, so you can just crack it open and find something. And the actual writing, the one thing I loved about that even more is, as we were talking about it, is the fact that as people are writing out what is making them happy, what is making them happy, and then how can you incorporate those things into, the unhappy thing is removing them and making them happier. In that writing, as you know, the kinesiology of the hand and getting all the body working, they're actually working out or processing what they read and processing their answers through that writing. So it actually, and I'm all about multisensory, so for me, the book has more of that multisensory element, and it does bring in many facets of learning, like NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, just doing all the little different tools by being able to crack it open. And like you said, it's this kind of inner knowing that we don't know why. How many times have you needed to hear something and that song came on the radio? Or how many times you've been thought about someone and they call you and it's them on the phone, right? So it's that inner intuitiveness that we already have, yet the universe, we're not paying attention, so it brings it out to you in another way, either through cracking open the book. It's the perfect thing you need to hear to that phone call or to that song. So I really love the many facets of the book from that perspective. And I've always just been drawn to you anyway, just from all the stuff you post on Facebook, and I got that you understood that whole mind, body, spirit interconnection. Yes. So I'd love for you to touch a little bit upon that. People know me, they know that that's my logo, is we're all interconnected. I'd love for people to get a little more sense of your kind of core beliefs and values in terms of that mind, body, spirit connection. Like you said, you felt like when you were writing the book, it came through you. So what are some of your thoughts about the mind, body, spirit connection?
Well, I totally believe that we are spiritual beings more than we are physical beings. Everybody has incorporated in their soul 3 or 4 basic questions. Why was I born? Why am I here? What is the purpose of life? And where am I going when I die? No one can remember asking to come here, asking to be born into this space and time. My psychic friend calls it the earth plane. And no one and nothing that comes to this planet gets out alive, or at least without transforming into something else. So I was born and raised Catholic. Once I got old enough to say I'm not going to church, I'm not so on and so on, I did, because the rituals and just the pure religiousness of it was something that when I got old enough, I felt that wasn't for me. And yet, it certainly was a way at an early age to be exposed to spiritual things. There's nothing wrong with Catholicism. It's great if you want to be a Catholic. No. But I started when I was 16, 17, 18. The first inspirational book I ever read was Dr. Wayne Dyer's Your Erroneous Zones. That was like cutting edge at the time. And I've been, since 16, I've been a surfer. And not just I go surfing. I mean, it was a lifestyle. And I lived in Florida, lived in Puerto Rico, I lived in the Bahamas, I lived in the Virgin Islands, there to surf and dive. Then I moved to Laguna Beach, California. So that was really upping the surfing level. Southern California, Trestles. And then from there, I moved to Hawaii. And you can't that's like moving to Colorado or Utah if you're a skier. You've got to be good. And of course, these are expensive places because they are tourist places. And everything's expensive because it's tourist prices. And so through surfing is very Zen, very Buddhist, very, you're literally in nature, and you are in a power zone that will drown most people. and you're there to have fun and be exhilarated. And, you get in touch with a lot of things like, God, please let me get to the surface to take another breath. There's not so many things that you feel that, right? Being pinned down by the force of nature, and all you want is another breath. Take everything else, just give me another breath, And so I think everything is spirit. And we're spiritual beings having this physical experience called life. And now I just turned 61. I've gone through stuff, I had lots of money, and I had the big house, and I was married, and I had a lot of stuff, and so on and so on. And somehow, over the last 7-year period, almost the same period that I started writing this book, I've lost all that I've gained other things, and they're more spiritual. And so I personally, I think it's all about spirit. And of course, the mind, it's mind, heart, and soul. Your mind is where you think your spiritual thoughts. Your heart is where you feel those spiritual things. And in your soul is your mind and your will and your emotions. And so it is, and I don't know how many times I mentioned mind, heart, and soul, which is the same as mind, body, spirit.
I love that terminology as well, only because to me, the heart is pretty much everything. I always try and tell people are always being told, follow your gut instincts. I'm like, your gut is butterflies, it's fear or flight. Your heart, that's your truest intuition. Your heart will never lie to you. Your gut will, so it's kind of like, I agree with you. I mean, the heart is the spirit. It's absolutely very powerful. I also love the whole analogies of the ocean and being a surfer, because it really is, you are having to you have to bond with Mother Nature, but it's also that letting go, that relinquishing. If you don't be with the water, like you said, very easy to get into panic, flight, and drown. So there is that wonderfulness about learning to be with the water. Also, go ahead.
And it's also a core of humanity, that because you're in this pack, and in Hawaii, because you have a lot of people flying in from other places, then you have your locals. You can have 75 up to 150 people in the water, all after the same wave. And you see greed, and you see dishonesty, and you see anger, and you see just everything, because everybody wants the same thing. They want the next wave. And it can either be extremely frustrating. I mean, there are days to where, I was happy to get 2 waves, in 2 hours, And then being older, you have the 15, 20 years, 25 years old, 30-year-olds that are just, they don't get more aggressive than that. They're the testosterone in the water. People in their 50s or 60s, they're more in the Zen part of it all, And so it's an interesting social experience and physical, spiritual experience at the same time. It is what I missed. I now live in Sarasota, Florida. It's the biggest thing that I miss about Maui.
Yeah, Maui is very magical. As you know, I lived on the Big Island for 4 years. I lived in Oahu for 6 months. And Hawaii is a very interesting place. It's beautiful, it's gorgeous, and it's a very unique culture.
Yes.
So I'd love for people to find out where they can find you and where they can get the book. Since this is a podcast, not everybody's going to be able to see our lower third, which I'll make sure is edited in since we forgot. And we got talking right away. So anyways, I'd love for people to know where they can find you.
The book is available on my website, which is www.inlifeschool.com, INLAFESCHOOL.com. And the price on the book is $24.95. And I currently have it on the website on sale for $19.95, and I include free shipping.
Hold on a second. Now that the wonderful phones are connected to your new computers, I forgot that even though I turned my phone off, it would ring on the computer now.
Wow.
Yeah, the latest phone came out, and it is now interconnected with the universe.
So does it automatically go to Skype or go?
It's really interesting. No, it'll ring on here, even though I have it on vibrate right now, and that was probably kind of a mistake. I didn't turn it completely off. And it'll pop up on a screen on your computer with phone call. And it'll tell you who's calling and everything. And now from my computer, I hit decline.
Same as the TV.
Exactly. So now that was a good reminder for me. Instead of hitting mute, it's off. Wow. So that it can't ring through the computer. Oops, my bad.
But that was a nice ringtone, though.
Oh, I thank you. Well, anyways, it's been an absolute joy to reconnect. We've known each other on Facebook for a while. Thank you so much for joining me. Is there any last beautiful message you'd like to leave the audience with?
Well, I would like them to buy my book. I have made a commitment to not only investing in the book, I've got with a book coach and the design and the publishing and the editors, I've got about $10,000 invested into that book. So for $20, you will walk away with a very big value. There is something in that book of value that will change people's lives if they let it, for everyone in every chapter. And there's no other book out there like it. And I'm committed to making a full-time living as an author, which, as you well know, is only a commitment like that is only for the brave and the strong, because it is extremely challenging, and you have to sell a lot of books.
However, we're going to encourage everybody. I'm serious. It has amazing content in it. You'll love his insights and his writing. I've been a fan for a long time. So I encourage everybody to go and get the book. Again, you can go to inlifeschool.com and read all about wonderful insights, mind, body, and spirit. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Have a wonderful afternoon, and thank you again so much for joining me, Rob.
Thank you for having me on the show. I enjoyed it thoroughly.